because we typically have it on a beautiful night out. A lot of times we'll call a meeting out at the street and have that. And at this point in time, it's sad, but we didn't feel like we could do that safely to be able to have social distancing and everything else. Obviously, this is a crazy time. You all are my guinea pigs. So we're trying this, and the fact that you're my guinea pig of we're trying to get this right. We don't know when this process is ever going to open back up or anything else. And we have a live council meeting. We had one, and we kind of required everybody to submit any questions they had ahead of time, and which was fine. But I kind of like my meetings at least to be able to talk and have an open dialogue. So we're going to allow that just because of background noise and different things like that. Charmalee has everybody muted. For the people that I can see, you know, if you'd raise your hand or anything else, Charmalee can see you too as we go through, and we'll have kind of some questions later on. But you all live in Fort Mitchell. I mean, it is the fort. I'm not been here all my life, and I know that this is the historical portion of the city. And you know, the streets that we're getting ready to peel up, you know, some of them have limestone pavers underneath. The original streets are over 100 years old. And in order to do this, they're very wide. You know, Ridge is a dead end street versus Coleman or West.Orchard. So we're going to go through some of the, you know, what we're going to be able to do. Typically, our contractors on here who was awarded the job, Mike Rigler. In the past, we've worked with him, and they've been great in working and making sure that the residents, you know, have updated schedules. They're working through Matt Stegman, who's our director of public works. And there's always hiccups in construction. You know, there's always things that unforeseen things, and we hope that not to be the case, but weather plays a big impact. So when we talk schedules and things like that, they're doing their very best. Rigler has also always helped people up with groceries or, you know, anything, especially if it's a challenge getting into your driveway. There's going to be times that we go through that and we'll work through that. Obviously with social distancing right now, that's tough. But we're going to do our very best. Contractors parking, what is your yard? You know, some of you may have sprinkler systems and different things. Those are things that need to be really laid out and discussed, you know, here very soon. So we have an active plan to make sure that they're shut down and going through. There is a set of historical steps at the back of Ridge, and everybody's asked me about those. Nothing against my contractor with Rigler, very good contractor, but because of the historical nature of those steps, we did not put, not replacing, but bringing them up to a standard to make sure that they're repaired. We're going to probably utilize a different contractor for that, for the historical significance of doing that. So that'll be another meeting, maybe towards the middle, towards the end, that we'll be discussing what we're going to do and some of the repairs, because a lot of people do use that and they walk, and we want them to do that and do it safely. So that's another portion of this. But with that, the engineers will walk you through. My quick snapshot of this is obviously they're going to take everything out. They're going to build it back up to our regulations, which is a little bit better grade than a regular subdivision a long time. There'll be new curb, new gutter. We are not narrowing the street. We're not doing anything like that. I did question some of the sidewalk. Significant repairs are being done where they need to be, and that is all part of the bid and the bid package. So, so we'll get to. Did I freeze? Did I freeze? Am I okay?
Yeah.
Mayor, I could hear everything that you said clearly enough. If you can hear me telling you that.
I think, yeah, I think he did.
Did I freeze up? Now I'm back.
Yes.
Sorry. So this is what to do with these type of meetings. So I was going to turn it over to Matt anyway, and we'll get to other questions and stuff like that here in a minute. Matt, you want to introduce your team and go through this?
Thanks, Mayor. First, just start with the engineer. It's Rob Keller with Bayer Becker. He's on here with audio, not video. And they've been looking at this for the better part of a year. Also, Kyle Ryan with the North Kentucky Water District. Since we're replacing the water mains with this project, they've become a vital part of our team, of course, and coordinating with them. We also have Mike Rigler with Rigler Blacktop, who is on as well, the contractor. And they'll be prime contractor. They do have a couple of subs out there, but he can speak to things from the contractor's side. As far as the presentation goes, the mayor touched on a couple of things before we get to that. We're going to be sending out a letter. Normally we do a door hanger, but we're going to be sending an information flyer out to all the residents asking, do you have a irrigation sprinkler system, dog fence, anything that might be out in right of way? Do you have any special access needs, handicap accessibility, any concerns like that whatsoever? We're going to ask you to either email me back or fill it out on this flyer and mail it back. But since not everybody gets email, we can't be sure that's going to be hit. We are still going to either mail that out or I think that's probably the best option is to send that out. But we do want your input. We need to know whether you have anything like that in the ground. But it'll be a little while before we absolutely need to know that. So we have a little bit of time before we get into where we're touching your yard, so to speak. So with that, Rob, are you ready to go?
I am. Can you hear me, Matt?
Yes, I hear you fine. Thanks.
Okay. Is there any kind of drawing that you want me to put up or do you have to put up?
I have the here. If you want me to share my screen, and I can I'll do that. So give me a second to do that, and I'll bring the drawing up. Oh. Okay, so that's actually a photo from early 1900s of the steps on the end of Ridge. I was able to find that historical photo. Okay, now the drawing's up. So Rob, if you want to talk through, and I'll just follow your lead and bring it to whichever page you want.
I want to go to page 2.
Rob, if you're talking, I can't hear you there.
Okay. If you want to go to page 2, Matt, that is the overall project scope. There, can you hear me? Matt, can you hear me? Good.
Yes,
Okay.
Rob, we can hear you.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Charmaline. Thanks, Mayor. Again, Matt said, I'm Rob Keller, engineer with Bayer Becker. We have offices right in Fort Mitchell, and we've been doing work for, I think, over 20 years now for the city. So I appreciate you all having me on the meeting here tonight. Just a general overall project scope. It involves improvements to 3 streets. So you can see on the map, we have Ridge Road from St. John's to the end. That's about 650 feet. You have Coleman Avenue from Ridge to West Orchard. It's about 400 feet. And then we have West Orchard from Iris Road to Dixie Highway, which is about 850 feet. So those are the 3 streets that we'll be working on. And on those streets, we have 2 different pavement sections that we're going to be doing. So on Ridge Road and West Orchard, those streets are going to involve a full width, full depth reconstruction. So the entire pavement will be removed from curb to curb. Take all the pavement out, and then they're going to undercut the subgrade soils and then start building that pavement structure back up. It'll have a 12-inch stone base. It'll get brand new concrete box curb and gutters on each side. And then it'll have an 8-inch asphalt pavement surface. We'll also be installing new perforated edge drains underneath the curb and gutter on each side of the road. With the street reconstruction, when we're removing that, we're also going to get into the driveways. So we'll be replacing all the concrete driveway aprons on Ridge Road and West Orchard. And then throughout the entire project, I think the mayor mentioned, we'll be doing some miscellaneous sidewalk repairs as well. So that's our pavement section on Ridge and West Orchard, whole new pavement section. On Coleman, the curb and gutter is of the newer box curb type. So it's in fairly decent shape. So on that section of the roadway, we're milling down about 4.5, 5 inches of that pavement structure. And then we'll build that back up with 3 to 3.5 inches of asphalt base and then 1.5 inch surface. So that'll take care of all the pavement improvements. For the entire project, there's very limited storm sewer and catch basins on the project. On West Orchard at Dixie Highway, there's a set of 2 catch basins. And those catch basins pick up a fair amount of water, actually all the way from Ridge Road. So we are going to extend a 15-inch storm sewer from Dixie all the way up to Coleman Avenue. It's about 550 feet, and set 2 new catch basins there. And then we'll set 2 catch basins mid-block on West Orchard from Coleman to Dixie Highway. And then with that's the most part of the city's improvements. Also involved with the project is the water main's going to be reconstructed. Water main's fairly old. The city always works with the water district, and the water district works with us when we rebuild these streets. So they're going to be replacing the water main. I want to say it's probably 1,900, 2,000 feet of water main that's going to be rebuilt. So that is kind of the general, overall project scope. There are several trees. The city did have an arborist come in and review the trees and kind of grade them and rate them. There's a couple of them right up against the curb. So there are 3 or 4 trees that will need to get removed. Matt will be working with the contractor on that. But I think that covers it for the most part. Matt, is there anything you think I need to touch on, or?
No, I think that's good. Project overview. Like you mentioned there, at the end, there's 4 trees, and I'm trying to show those. Hopefully the folks at home can see what I've shared and what I'm doing on the screen here. But nobody else has anything on the roadway side of design. I'm ready to hand off to Kyle Ryan with the Water District.
All right, Matt, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Thanks.
All right, yeah. Thanks for having me. Again, my name's Kyle Ryan. I'm an engineer with the Northern Kentucky Water District. As Rob mentioned, with this project, we'll be replacing the water mains on West Orchard and Ridge Road with new 6 and 8-inch PVC piping. On Ridge Road, starting at St. John's, the new water main is going to be installed under the south sidewalk until we get to Coleman. And then at Coleman, the main will switch sides of the street and be placed under the north sidewalk all the way to the end of Ridge Road. And then on West Orchard, the water main is going to be installed under the new road, the entire length from Dixie Highway to Iris. So as these 2 mains are being installed, the existing main will remain live, providing water service to the street during construction. Once the new main's installed, we'll need to schedule a shutdown in order to connect that new main to the water system. So 2 days prior to these planned shutdowns, we'll put out door hangers. They'll be distributed to all the affected customers, specifying the date and the time of the water outage. Most customers can expect to have at least 2 water outages during the course of the project, and typically they're scheduled between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. In addition to the new water main, we're going to be installing new fire hydrants, which will be put back in approximately the same spots as the old ones. And we'll be replacing the water service lines from the new water main to the meter, which the meters sit either on the front or the back side of the sidewalk, kind of in the grass strip there. So from the water main to the meter will be replaced with new copper service line. The service line from the meter to the house belongs to the homeowner and will not be addressed with this project. So we shouldn't need to be digging much past the back of the sidewalk. We're not going to be up in people's yards, just mainly out in the roadway area and maybe a little on the back side of the sidewalk. Like with the system outages, you'll be notified 2 days in advance of when they switch you to the new service line. Service switchovers aren't as involved as the water main tie-ins, and they only take typically maybe 2 hours to complete. Considering the age of the houses in this area, there is a possibility that the customer-owned portion of the service line that we're tying into may be made of lead. As we connect to individual services, we will hang a yellow door hanger on each house as we switch the service over, indicating whether or not the service line on the customer side of the meter is made of lead or not. If it is lead, there's instructions on the flyer of how the lines within the house should be flushed. And during this flushing period, we do provide Brita pitchers and water sampling at no cost to the customer. So during construction of the water main, we'll have an inspector on site overseeing the work. His name's Nick Behrens. Prior to construction, Nick will mail a letter to everyone along the limits of the project that are impacted, giving them project-specific information, guidance on how to handle lead service lines, and his contact information. So be on the lookout for this correspondence in the mail. And just as to recap, any communication with the water district, again, starts out with the initial mailer that we're going to send out. And then from that point on, whether it be for scheduled shutdowns or to let you know what your service line is made out of, those will be handled by door hangers. So be on the lookout for those. So that's really all the water main specifics that I have. So I'll hang around to the end of the meeting in case there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that. Now we'll go to Mike Rigler, talk about the construction portion of that. Mike, you ready?
Can you hear me?
It's a little quiet. If you can be louder or talk closer.
Yeah. Still have the same problem from this morning where my microphone ain't working really good. So hopefully I'm trying to do it over the phone. Hopefully this works.
That's coming through loud and clear.
Okay, good. So the project will kind of have a soft start late next week, we think. We'll come in, do some saw cutting, get the storm sewer staked out, maybe do some tree removal next week. And then the following week, we should be getting it started on the storm sewer work. Most of the storm sewer work, as far as houses go, really none of the driveways and things like that will be affected. During the day, we may have a crew or a flagman there just watch them. It'd be very minor delays getting in and out for the storm sewer end of things. That's going to probably take 2 weeks, somewhere in that period of time, maybe 3, depending on what the weather does to us. And then from there, the water main comes in. The water is actually going to be constructed by a subcontractor of ours, W.Orchard Construction. We've been working with them since the 1960s, so we work very close together. They're going to come in and do the water main work. When they do that, we feel like they got maybe around 3 weeks also of work on that as well. we're going to start looking at, we sent a schedule out to the city today that we're trying to kind of be conservative on the schedule as far as, you know, we want to get the storm work done and then the water main, and we don't want to create too much of an issue for the residents at any time. But at one point, when the water main we feel like maybe far enough or out of the way, we may start the reconstruction process. The reconstruction process is the period of time that's probably the most effective to the residents. So what we're planning on doing is kind of breaking the reconstruction into about 4 different phases. Probably start at Ridge Road and go up to Coleman Avenue as phase 1. And then from Coleman out to the end of the road there, St. John's on phase 2. And then we'll go back and start on the other street and do that in 2 halves. So to kind of talk you how through this works, and we've done a lot of roads in Fort Mitchell and really a lot of roads all over northern Kentucky. We found a kind of a method that keeps people in access every day for a while until the concrete's poured, but also allows for emergency access of EMS and things like that. So what we'll typically do is we'll start out and we'll start removing the roadway. And every day we'll excavate about 100 feet of street. And while we do that, in that 100 feet, we'll run the edge drain while we do that. So on a given day, we'll dig out 100 foot of street, run 100 feet of pipe down each side, and then in the afternoon, we will bring in the stone base that goes back in. And we try to kind of get it wedged in to where if you had to get in your driveway, you can drive down in the gravel if you need to get in and out, and we'll try to wedge your driveway up. And then that way you do have access if you have to during this period. So the first week, we'll take 100 feet, then 100, then 100, then 100. So by the end of the week, we'll have that whole first section removed and gravel put back in. And then at this point is where it really kind of cuts the access down. The hardest part of this is when we pour concrete curbs and concrete driveways, they normally take about 5 days before we can let traffic back on them. So what we try to do is after the gravel's put in, they'll come in on that Friday and string line it for curbs and get it graded out. And then typically what we'll do is on Monday of the second week of that phase, we will pour the curbs. And then in order to get the driveways as close to the curb curing time as possible, the day after the curbs go in, we work on the driveways. Some phases we can get them all back in the very next day. Some of the other ones with more driveways, it may take 2 days. But we'll get that back in. And while you're out of the driveway and out of where you can't get in and out, we'll grade the street that week and put the asphalt base paving in. And so really each phase, in theory, with, you know, good weather and we don't run into any utility issues. Each phase is about 2 weeks, where the first week you have access to the driveway, but you're kind of driving through gravel. And then the second week, you're kind of completely out of it. We try to still give you plenty of pedestrian access and parking as best we can at that point. So then when each phase is done, we move on to the next phase. Some of the things that lag between the phases would be like the sidewalk repair, curb backfill restoration, things like that. That'll be wrapped up sometimes while we're starting the next phase, but that really won't affect you getting in and out of the driveway at that point. So we're kind of looking at 2 weeks per phase. So that's about an 8-week period for West Orchard and Ridge. And then once everything is done and the sidewalks are done and the restoration is done, we come in and put the last 1.5 to 2 inches on the road. And that's just like paving any other roadway. We can do that under traffic with flagmen, and that won't, you know, that's a 1-day process. And we should move pretty quick with that. One thing I do want to kind of bring up while some of the residents are here, that the restoration, it's always the hardest part of these projects. The good thing is when we start doing the restoration on this project, the final restoration, it should be in September, which is ideal temperature or ideal part of the year to grow grass and sod. The engineers in the city did a really nice job as far as speccing out sod to be put in between the sidewalk and the back of curb, because that's always been difficult to grow grass in that short little period. We will water that, heavily water when we put down, but as you can imagine, we ask the residents to kind of be proactive and try to help kind of take care of getting the grass to grow, because after we get it in there and I think we water it, I forgot what the spec says on it, for a week or two, once a day, it is important for the residents to try to put a sprinkler on it or whatever, just to, you have the best success for the grass to live if people are kind of helping, taking care of that too.
Mike, we'll send out some information on that as well to the residents to remind them of that, just taking care of their new sod. And thank you for bringing that up there. We do, it doesn't make any sense to put sod down in July or August. So we, even if the road work was done early, we would require the sod and the final grass wasn't put down until it's a better time to put that down. So I appreciate that. Do you have anything more on the, I think we're ready to go to questions from the public, unless you have something more there. So Sherman Lee, do you want to moderate that? Or go ahead.
I'm saying, I think at this point, questions would probably be beneficial.
Okay, Matt, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen so we can get everybody back on the view. Mayor, how do you want to do questions?
Well, if anybody that has their video up, Mr. Deitminger, I know I see your hand. If you want to go first, George, go ahead.
Hear me, okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of broken.
Okay. I keep storm doors. We're going to be putting in storms on W.Orchard.
Mr. Deitminger, you're breaking up. But if you lean forward and talk a little louder, that might help. Sometimes that does help.
Okay. Also, W.Orchard, we have one now.
Okay.
Question on
Storm sewer question.
Because there is W.Orchard, is a plan put one in.
Matt, do you think you could at least talk about storm sewers? Because I know you and I talked about sanitation wasn't, and then the storm. Let's just go over that for W.Orchard.
Okay. Do you want me to, Mr. Deitminger, we could, I could make out very little, if any, of what you said there. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the storm sewer. And that I'm going to go ahead and share that screen again, just to help with that. Okay, so get to that page. The storm sewer construction on W.Orchard. Let's see. Starting up at Coleman, we're adding 2 catch basins. And can you see where my? I'm going to zoom in on that.
And Matt, he lives at the beginning of W.Orchard too. So
okay. Mr. Deitminger, is your question about just the storm sewer in general? Yes. Or is it more, is the storm? Yes, in general? Okay, so this is on the high end. It's up here at Coleman and right next to West Orchard. And we're adding 2 catch basins there, running it down to a new manhole in the 1 lane of West Orchard. And from there, it's going to run down the street. So this is the same spot. If you see where the hand is moving there on the left side, that's what we were just looking at. It runs all the way down West Orchard. There's 2 new catch basins in the center of the street. You can see that was, go ahead. Yeah. And then, so they're added right there. And that's right in front of the Phillips on one side and Dan Summy on the other side on their houses. So you know where that is. And
George, we cannot understand what you're saying. There is a chat box at the bottom if you want to type in your question, or you can phone in like we did at the other meeting too.
yeah, I don't see the chat box unless I stop sharing. So I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, well, Matt, one of the questions I think that's really important here is right now there's no curb and gutter pan that is on any of these streets, correct?
Coleman has gutter pan, but the
That's
other
right.
2 do not. Right.
Okay, so George, I don't know if that helps answer 2, is that the curb and then the gutter pan is typically that concrete area it's sloped back to the curb that allows and catches that storm water, which then it flows down into the catch basin. So what's different on your street is that it does have the curb and the gutter plus the new storm drain. Hopefully that answers, and I'm sorry that it's we can't hear you, but that is on the storm water. It's all new. And then Matt, all just a double say this if it hasn't, is all the roof lines are being attached to that. Is that correct?
If there's a downspout that runs out to the street, we're going to connect it. And if there's not one, we're going to leave a spot where they can be connected to.
Yeah, and so that's a big key to, these older homes. So, a lot of them aren't connected, to do that. And if your house is not, it may be a good opportunity, a good time to be really thinking about that, because that truly does help, especially older homes, for flooded basements, for, weeping around the homes and everything else. From a contractor standpoint, it's really money well spent. If your house does not go to the curb now, this is a great time to be connecting in.
Was the house go which is a problem. And so I've connect those.
Yeah, Mr. Deitmanger, I think reading your lips a little bit is have that opportunity to be able to connect that.
Mr. Deitmanger, since we're having a hard time understanding your question, I'd be glad to meet with you out there, or any of you for that matter, and answer this in person with appropriate social distancing, of course, and be able to do that.
So what we're going to do is we're going to mute you, George, here just for a minute, and we're going to go to Chris. Do you have a question, or Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, this is Chris. My question is simple. Is there a suggested place for us to park? I think I understood this would be like a 1 week time when we're not to be driving on the street when it's curing. You just wherever you can, pretty much. And I should know this because I lived through the Woodlawn reconstruction, so I can't remember what we did with Woodlawn.
So that's kind of one reason why we always take like 3 to 350 foot sections. Typically, anywhere but the first part of Ridge, you would have, the longest would be 150, 175-foot walk from one end of the road to the other, except for Ridge where you have, it's a dead-end street. It's a little different. But anybody that can park on Coleman or any phase that we're not working on is what we recommend. At night, you know, like I said, we're going to wedge in every night with gravel. If you want to park down there at night, you can. Our crews get there normally by 7 a.m. So, you know, it just kind of depends on what's going on there. But most of the time we recommend to park in one of the other phases on the street if you can walk there, which I brought this up with the city too. It is, you know, if anybody does have handicap issues or elderly and walking becomes more of an issue, then please let us know and we'll try to do whatever we can to minimize the impact of it. Or, you know, we've had times where people need to get deliveries or something like that. Our foreman or our project managers on the jobs, most of those guys have been with us for decades. They know, you know, whatever we got to do to help the public, we will. So if any time you need to get in and out, I would say ask, and don't just ask anybody on the crew. Ask for whoever the foreman is, and then I'm sure they'll work with you on whatever it is we can help you with there.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Phillips, let's see, can you unmute?
Forgot you muted all of us early on. We move a lot of water off of our roof. We've got 4-inch PVC connected to all the downspouts. On one side of the house, they come almost to the sidewalk. On the other side of the house, we're running them out into the driveway. If we wanted to get everything all the way to the curb, could we get some assistance with getting through the sidewalk concrete?
Is that a question for myself or the city there? I'm not sure which house you're at there, sir.
Well, it's 20 West Orchard.
Okay, we got you.
So the question, you said this would be a good opportunity to get all the way to the curb with our downspouts, but we'd have to do an awful lot of concrete cutting to get there.
Mr. Phillips, do you see what I have up on the screen there? This is right in front of your house.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and over on the right-hand side, can you see the hand moving on the screen there?
Uh-huh.
Okay, it says existing 4-inch storm. That's where the engineer, the surveyors found your downspout running out to that point there, and right. They are going to connect that in.
Oh, they are.
Yes, that's going to be connected back behind the sidewalk. So we will go ahead and they'll have them replace that part of the sidewalk as well. That's right. You have a lot of those trees have done a little bit of a number in front of your house, so we're gonna have a little bit more than just 1 or 2 pieces of sidewalk to replace it in front of your place.
Well, and that's very kind of you, because that's probably the most dangerous piece of sidewalk in the neighborhood right now. The oak tree has shifted it up 3 inches or so.
We aim to please.
Okay.
We're going to put you back on mute, and we're going to go to Mr. Spoor. I think you had a question. Sharmlee, can you take him off of mute and see?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Sorry.
first, no problem. First of all, let me thank everybody for putting together the quick and effective meeting under what is surely very strange circumstances. So I appreciate that. Second of all, I'm at the very end of Ridge Road, 21 to 25, right off Dixie. And in this plan, it didn't really seem, I'm not sure what disruption, if any, is going to be from my house to Dixie Highway or access in general, because I'm not on the St. John side of Ridge, which is right at the very tip of Ridge. So I'm just a little confused if there's any plan for that particular stretch.
Mr. Spore, if you can, I brought that up on the screen there. If you can see that where the end of Ridge curves into St. John's, that's the end of work that we're doing there. I believe if I've got it right, that's your driveway. It's kind of a double wide driveway right there in the curve. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. We are working right there. We're not doing anything beyond that to the part of Ridge. I don't know if it's Ridge or St. John's, but nothing past this intersection that we have any plans for with this project. Now, directly in front of your driveway, we are aware that we do have some water ponding issues, and we're adjusting the grade there to try to force water away from there and make sure it flows past there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So Matt, let me ask you, looking at that transition of the street project ends in the middle of his driveway?
That's the transition. Let's see, that's the full depth asphalt compared to the next phase. We found the plans from when they started the Coleman subdivision.
Okay.
The edge of this street used to run right along here. Ridge Road ran out to Dixie Highway, and it was more appropriate, I guess. You folks tell me who lived there. I think it was more that this was Ridge Road that ran over here, and St. John's came off of Ridge Road. As that's the way I understood it, used to run, but now it's more aligned with St. John's Road, and Ridge kind of tees into that. So this section up here, that was already reconstructed with full depth when they did the Coleman project.
So are we going to grind at least from the stop bar and put a topping that it's all the way fixed all the way to the stop? I just don't want to stop in the middle of his driveway.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
actually, with that regrading, we're rebuilding a curb and gutter and sidewalk because we have to adjust that grade to get it to drain away. So there'll be a little bit more than just a regular mill and overlay, because I think if memory serves, Rob, if you're still on, Rob Keller, I'm pretty sure we're bringing that up just a little bit. Is that what we ended up with?
Yes, can you see that crosshatch? That represents an area where we don't have to tear out the pavement, but we've got a mill and level and
Okay.
put surface to get the drain. That's what that crosshatch is.
Mr. Spore, does that answer everything for you?
Yes, everything crystal clear. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being patient. Is there anybody else that has another question? We'll go ahead and I'm going to unmute everybody here just real quick, just to make sure that, because I can't see everybody. So everyone is unmuted now. I'll just ask the question again. Is there anybody that has a question for anybody? Okay, George, Matt will get with you tomorrow. He'll call you and make sure that your questions, because the audible is very bad. So I see you shaking your head, but we will get with you and make sure, hopefully we've addressed some of that. So,
Thank-
Chris?
Yeah, Matt, this question's for you. I know you came out to visit before and we talked about the width of the street. Did I hear you correctly at the beginning of this call say that you're not changing the width, or maybe Jude, you said that, Mayor? Something about the width.
We're
of
not.
Ridge.
We're not. We talked
Mayor,
about it.
There is a slight difference. We are pulling the curb in 6 inches. It's 29 feet currently, and we're making it 28. And
Yeah,
the
you drew
reason for that-
you drew lines at some point, right? I think I saw lines
Yep.
on the. I just was curious if that had changed since when you drew them. That's all.
I
No.
think we drew those lines. There was some consideration given before design to narrowing it to the standard street section of 25 feet, 25 feet back of curb to back of curb. And we decided with the historical character of the street, we didn't want to make that change. We're keeping it very close to what it is. The only reason for bringing it in 6 inches was to make it easier to work around trees where we're saving trees. And pulling it 6 inches away from those trees allows us to, not build forms and those sort of things where the roots have all grown around the back of the existing curb. So that mainly, the only reason is 28 instead of 29 is to save the trees that are there, that we are saving.
But is Jim was on the call earlier, Jim Smith, does he know the tree is gonna come out in front of his house?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay. Because I thought that was part of the consideration, because it kind of goes into the street, the curb already, the roots do. Okay,
There's 2 large trees on the plans, and actually there's a 3rd large tree in front of Mr. Phillips' house that we're going to remove. The Mr. Smith, Mr. Phillips, and over, I don't know their name, but it's on West Orchard, 127. They've got 3 large oaks in front of their house, and one of those is in poor shape. Those are the 3 larger trees. There's 2 smaller trees that are in bad shape as well.
all right, I'm good.
Good. All right, we're going to adjourn. I don't think there's if there's nothing else, be patient with us and we'll do the best that we can for communication. So be safe, everybody.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.